Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're starting a brand new fanfic, which is what if Naruto encountered a red-haired Uzumaki girl after losing everything. Part 2. If you enjoy this story, please like the video, subscribe, and let me know in the comments if you want a part 2. Now, let's begin the fanfic. Emi trusts you, as do I, so please don't do anything that would betray my hospitality, such as attempting to escape. It will only make the clan leader less trusting of you, Mito finished. Naruto wasn't entirely sure why he arguing about this, he wouldn't quite as bored if her sister was around. Thanks, I won't let you down. That seemed to be the end of that discussion. A thought entered him soon after, so he voiced his curiosity. So are you really a great shinobi? That's what they tell me, I was entrusted to watch over you, she explained. I'm capable. If you as much as entered my room without permission, I would have been able to disable you within the second, she replied casually. Oh, he could only say. I made some safety measures if you ever fought back, I attached a seal to disable you, she replied honestly. He looked down at his hands, as far as he was concerned, he never saw anything on him. But I did genuinely believe that you were a good person. He was flattered by the comment. Really? What's the seal do? He asked curiously. It paralyzes you, and would render you absolutely harmless and susceptible to attack, she explained. It's located on the back of your neck. Cool. Naruto could only reply as he felt for some sign where she said it was. All he felt was smooth skin. Can we try it? Adding excitedly. You want to try it? Mito's expression was of mild disbelief. I'm fairly positive that it is not pleasant to experience. I'm sure it will be fine. Go ahead and do it. He waited for her to complete it, but she was hesitating. Come on, trying to reassure her. You're curious about this, aren't you? He nodded. If you're so determined. He bobbed his head once more, which made her sigh. I know you won't enjoy this. If you do, I'm afraid you're a masochist. She raised her hand, forming some seal. Do it. He blinked a few times. She seemed to be hesitating. Come on. Mito frowned. Almost instantly, he felt his panic right away. He muscles locked, unable to move. Falling to his side, thankfully landing on the couch. It was too foreign, terrifying, knowing nothing responded to your demands. It was torture. He never wanted to experience such a thing again. He was able to move a movement later. He sat up, moving his limbs, just to be sure they reacted. Naruto cleared his throat, trying to shake the earlier feeling. He shuddered. I'm not sure I'm entirely comfortable knowing you have that much power over me. He tried to be joking, but his current tone of worry betrayed that. She laughed. I warned you, but it's fairly late now, and I have a mission to tend to early in the morning. He squirmed when she stood up without mentioning to take off the seal. He was able to calm himself though, since he had nothing to worry about. He would never give her a reason to activate it again. At least that's what he told himself. Then again, she was helping him with his problem. He was thankful for that. It's nice having a good friend helping me, he said out loud. He saw her retreating form freeze, before turning around and giving a warm smile. He felt funny. I suppose it's quite easy being friends with you, even Emi thinks so. What makes you trust me so easily? He asked. Mito turned to face him. The same could be said of, you also wear your emotions on your sleeve and. I also don't see how it's possible for someone with an aura like yours to be immoral. She walked away, but not before adding something. I also deactivated the seal permanently, as she left to her room. Huh. He felt the skin on his neck once more before giving a sigh. He took in her words, trying to dissect them. Emotions on my sleeve. My aura. He remembered something she had said about that. Standing up, he went down the hall and into his room. He had to admit, he was really glad that the seal was off. Although when she left in the morning, it would be signaling incredibly boring weeks at least potentially. He was going to be alone in the apartment for a while, he wasn't excited about that at all. Not to mention under house arrest, it would be torture. Although Emi would be visiting, hopefully. Naruto's eyes lazily fluttered open before closing once more. The incessant knocking sounded at the door once more, like it had every other day of the week. Piling a pillow over his head, he attempted to drown out the noise. It only met with failure when the knocking intensified. The knocking seemed to go in a specific pattern, one that he came to recognize. He continued to lie there, letting Mito answer the door. Before he recalled that he was actually alone inside the apartment. Naruto. A voice called out, muffled from the distance and objects. He remembered now. It's been a few days since Mito had left him alone to be under house arrest. It was everything he had feared. He desired sleep, but being awakened by stubborn early risers ruined that. Groaning, he grumpily stood up from the bed, and shuffled himself through the hallway into the entrance. Annoying. Yawning from the interruption to his sleep. Opening the door. What is it saw? He was puzzled. The thought fled away before it could solidify. A red-haired woman stood in front of him holding onto a bag. Right, Emmy, shaking his head to wipe the sleep away. Said person tore her eyes away, a scowl and some redness adorning her cheeks that rivaled her hair. What the hell, put on some clothes. She cursed. He looked down below, to see that he was only dressed in some orange boxers. Oh right. Well, you're the one who woke me up so early, he tiredly retorted. It's almost noon, she continued to look to the side. He turned around, heading back into the hall. Still way too early for me. Rubbing out the sleep from his eyes as he entered his impromptu room, he quickly found his clothing and dressed himself. Why do you knock when you have keys? He yelled at her. Emmy seemed to ignore his question. Why the hell are you acting like this your place? It's not like you've been living here for months, she yelled from where he assumed was the living room. Well, Mito did say to make myself at home when she left. That doesn't mean it really is. It's not like she's here or anything, he replied. He walked out of the room completely dressed in his, well, the clothes he had appeared in. He had other clothes, of course, bought a week ago. Although he preferred the orange pants and his jacket. He smelled something completely tantalizing as he wandered into the living room. Ramen. Awoken by the sudden delicious smell, Emmy was snacking down on ramen on a couch, with another bowl placed on the coffee table. Here, I brought you some. You're a goddess. He quickly sat down on the seat opposite of her. Smiling widely. You're really overdramatic at times, just don't tell Mito we ate on her couch. Got it, Emmy. Itadakimasu. They ate silently for a while, until Emmy spoke again. So anything new? Memories, I mean. He thought about the little things he remembered, along with biggest one he recalled. I remember names. These 9 names, weird ones. She nodded her head, waiting for him to continue. Like Shukaku, Yuki or Kurama. Yeah, those are a little weird. Sure, but it felt like I should remember them. Do you know what they look like? He shook his head. They gotta be friends, right? Nah, just their names, but I think so. There was also some other unimportant dreams. Like rocks or some flash of orange. Kurama, huh? He didn't know why that name stood out to him more. He kept having some feelings though, the longer he stayed, a foreboding feeling slowly swelled within him. It didn't help that he was confined to the apartment. Naruto had noticed it before, but it was fairly insignificant and easy to forget. Now he couldn't shake the uneasiness whenever he was alone, which was fairly a majority part of the day. Emmy certainly helped with keeping the feeling away. Mito should come back. He felt he needed to do something, but what was entirely lost on him, and it was stupid. Mito listened intently to the conversation, which seemed to near its end. Between the council of the notable shinobi clans of Konohagakure. With all the present clan leaders in the room, so far it seemed that Konoha would have the greatest population in the future. Most notable were the Hyuga, Uchiha and Senju. Along with more others, all varied in number and strength. Each clan had one leader, who sat down, with an advisor standing behind. Even the respective daimyos of both Land of Fire and Land of Whirlpools participated in the discussion. Mito herself stood behind the chair of her grandfather. The talk had been going on for hours now. Her eyes flitted towards the 2 founding clans of the village. Madara Uchiha was an imposing figure, sitting down and carefully scrutinizing the talks. Wearing a high-collared black coat and with his chin resting on his thumbs. His oink's eyes calculating, but he also seemed to be a bit bored. He hardly participated at all but always listened in. He seemed to be a man who was always prepared, never letting down his guard. He was the only clan leader with no advisor. It was quite the contrast to the other man sitting beside him, Chakra, personality, as well. Madara's chakra seemed cold and distant, evil, almost. It made her uncomfortable to be around. Hashirama's chakra was able to counteract that though, it was like she remembered it. Hashirama Senju was quite relaxed, almost uncaringly. It was wrong though. He listened intently to each and every word that came out from anyone in the room. His eyes much warmer than the Uchiha. Mito's and Hashirama's eyes crossed momentarily, before he concentrated on the discussion. He was dressed in beige robes. His brother, Tobarama, stood over him. Much less relaxed than him. From what she found out throughout the discussion, Hashirama was a charismatic person. Each person listened intently whenever he spoke, even Madara paid closer attention, his eyes less bored than before. If there ever was a single leader, it would be Hashirama. It would be more efficient, seeing the number of clans and people within the village. But according to the talks, they were already working on it. It wasn't the most pressing matter though and had to be completed another time. It was mostly because the Uzumaki clan was called here, as they wanted to discuss their concerns. The major topic of discussion involved the tailed beasts. Apparently, Kumo had captured a tailed beast for them to use. The two tails, if information was correct. Apparently it had raged in captivity for a while, before being caught by Jutsu. Must be a seal. It was quite a feat to restrain such a powerful beast. It wasn't the first time, but others were temporary, breaking free soon after. It didn't seem to be the case for Kumo. It was quite the troublesome predicament if they had done such a thing. So far no other village had done such a thing. There would be a race to capture the tailed beasts, each village would be researching for seals and jutsu capable of restraining them. Kumo was already ahead and had the advantage if they can use tailed beasts' power, which had never been used effectively. It was also the reason she was called to this meeting. The Uzumaki clan had been called forth to assist in the matter. Research a seal powerful enough to restrain the strongest tailed beast, which was the nine-tailed fox. It was quite the order. She made some hasty calculations. To create such a complex seal would perhaps take a year or so to accomplish. Even then, there was no guarantee that it would work to contain such vast chakra. It was quite clever. Bring both villages' ties closer together while making the village more powerful. While Konoha did have some proficiency in Fuinjutsu, it wasn't quite as advanced as Uzushiogakure. They would guarantee that the seal would be made as quickly as possible, taking advantage of their close ties. Of course, they were offered a tailed beast themselves. Luckily her grandfather had refused. It would paint their own village if there was a power struggle between tailed beasts. They weren't as large as Konoha or the other major villages. Their power was a little pale in comparison, their country small. It was something that Shin easily understood. Perhaps somewhere down the line would be more applicable, when they gained strength. A potential war. It seemed so soon. A war to collect the tailed beasts and use them for war. It would be unlike any other thing. Not just feuding clans, or a skirmish over land. A full-scale war with numerous numbers. She took some solace in the fact that it would be years away, as they would also have to find the tailed beasts. She had felt the malicious chakra of the nine tails before. It seemed to be made of pure evil. She had been able to sense it from such a long distance. But just like all other tailed beasts, it had went into hiding, suppressing its chakra. Locating one would possibly take years. They were excellent at concealing themselves. So, seeing as everything is done, it's been agreed that the Uzumaki will conduct their research in Konoha, Hashirama stated. I'll deal with our guests. I'll gladly house them for the time being unless they obtain more permanent residence, almost too loudly, albeit in a jovial way. He brought life to the otherwise stale conference. Naruto is kind of like him. Everyone agreed with the Senju leader, the daimyos included. Madara gave a simple nod in recognition as they left the assigned seating. She recalled during the early parts of the meeting that he spoken up, stating that he had the potential to control the tailed beast, with his dojutsu. He also stated that since he could, Hashirama did as well. Mito could easily tell that Madara respected the Senju leader immensely. Although, the same could not be said towards the other clan leaders. Hashirama was still adamant on providing an alternative to their problem. As he explained that despite their power, he wasn't sure since they had never truly tested their mettle against the tailed beast. Madara's point sounded boisterous and arrogant, while Hashirama seemed more modest. Although, she was certain that both were capable of fighting a tailed beast. The only concern that was required was to seal them within something, whether inside a person or an item. An item seemed ideal. She returned to the present, seeing everyone exit the large room. The only ones in the room were Shin and herself, along with the two Senju brothers. Both Hashirama and Tobarama walked over to where they stood. That was quite the discussion. My age is getting to me, Shin commented, lightly stretching as he stood from the chair. I'm sure you still have quite the years ahead of you, Hashirama replied. Mito, it's quite good to see you once more, he smiled. One that she returned, along with a polite bow. It's good to see you as well. I'm sure we can get moving as we discuss more important matters. You can be more personal later, Tobarama intervened. His arms crossed, a slight sheepish look on his brother. I'm certain Mito is quite exhausted as I am, seeing as we had to stand. She nodded in agreement, but didn't outwardly show her exhaustion. It quite interesting to see the dynamics in their relationship. Seeing another side of Hashirama, serious and concerned about his new home, was a nice treat. Even in a more complicated and stern environment was he somewhat the same person. Tobarama seemed to get him back on track most often. Of course, I was the one sitting down. It does get a little tiring, but the safety of the village comes as important too, Hashirama said. Let's get going and we'll talk. So you're telling me that he might be from Konoha? Shin asked. That's pretty interesting, as he scratched his goatee. Mito had finally got a chance to talk about the blonde in her home. So she described everything she knew about him, explaining what had occurred when the Yamanaka was probing around in his mind. She had mostly given him her opinion of Naruto, of what she had found out about the blonde. Yes, he had known a young Hyuga woman, unsealed by the looks of it, she frowned. The way the Hyuga separated themselves was quite uncivilized. Contrary to how they presented themselves. Sealed and unsealed members. Branch house and main house. The only good thing was that it would dramatically lessen the time to see if Naruto knew one of them. Unsealed members didn't have the numbers compared to the branch house. Shin spoke once more. I have to wonder how he had gotten so far. I still have to meet him before I agree with this. She nodded in understanding. He could possibly be of some use with our research, and he can be at home if Konoha really is. Really? How can he possibly be of some help? You've seen his kunai, the seal inscribed on them, he perked up. He's a shinobi, and we don't even know much about him. He nodded, no doubt thinking about Naruto's kunai. Are you willing to pay for him for place here? She shook her head. He has a surprisingly amount of ryo in that wallet of his, she spoke. I was also going to speak about him to Hashirama, of his possible origins. Well, we'll see, he relented. We'll be leaving in 2 days' time to escort our daimyo back to the country. Of course, now that you'll excuse me, I've already accepted an invite to dine with Hashirama, Mito replied. I'll also have to explain an extra guest. Wow, I really at this Naruto could only think. He watched her make a move, taking out a good piece. He grabbed his bowl, slurped his noodles that he had gotten from Emi. His boredom made him inspect the shugi board. It was obviously made out of wood, the tiles with different colored hues. The type of wood was completely lost on him, nor did he care actually. That was how far his investigative skills got him. The only sound was from the occasional slurping from himself, and the pieces that tapped on the board. Snapping annoyingly. He made another move, a different piece was promptly destroyed soon after with his lack of foresight. He noticed that he had lost interest in the game long ago, after playing several games before. Mito's a whole lot better at this than I am, Emi commented. Eating some sort of sandwich. She didn't eat quite as formal as Mito, but she wasn't him either. The same could be said of her personality. He sighed. He really didn't want to lose, despite his disinterest in the game at the moment. So far he had been desperate for more entertainment, and he had relented to playing shugi. It was too slow-paced for him, a little boring. But far better than just sitting around or reading. Well, he wanted to read, but he only itched for something specific. It was weird. He was still recollecting some memories, relatively minor, if he had anything to say himself. Where was he recollecting his shattered memories? He heard Mito say that he might not remember anything else at all. Sometimes the memories came entirely out of nowhere. At other moments it felt natural, and sometimes it crept to him. He looked up at Emmy, who bore a somewhat concentrated look on her face. He found out that she had recently turned 18. Mito's own birthday was in April. So far it was June. How old do you think I am? He said, prompted by the topic. Why, do you know? Asking curiously. Nah. Taking another bite of the ramen. Well, taking up a contemplative look. You look like you're around my age, she replied. Probably a little incy bit older, a little bit younger than Mito though. That's really specific, you know. I got my reasons. Lame answer. HMPH, she crossed her arms. I've got none, okay. He simply looked at her. We're just talking about age, she complained. It's the way I do things, stop trying to instigate an argument. He frowned, sighing a moment later. Sorry, it's really boring in here, she gave a face of mock hurt. Are you saying I'm dull company? Although she did have a hopeful look in her eyes. No, you're a great friend. I probably wouldn't have been able to survive for this long if not for you, her eyes twinkled in approval. I wonder what Mito would think, she tapped her chin thoughtfully. Well, it's too late for that, I already said it was boring. Wow, really? She gave a nod of approval. Some fellows like to up to her, I can tell you're a terrible liar too. I can lie, I just really don't see a reason to, he gave a shrug as he slurped the last of the noodles. He wondered if that had anything to do with what Mito said before. So you don't want to seem disingenuous? She asked. Sure. I mean, why would I lie to someone? I really don't see a reason for it, at least for things that he felt about other people, his views and such. Okay, what do you think of my hair? She asked. He looked at the subject at hand. Her hair was as red as Mito's, but it was far longer and he guessed it reached her waist. It seemed to be incredibly silky if he were to touch it. It's beautiful, he replied. A thought of which he preferred, long hair or short hair. They both seemed to appeal to him. I can believe you, she said. Her palms resting on her face as she looked at the game. Emmy seemed to go into a contemplative trance, but still playing their game of shugi they participated in. Their talk seemed to be over and he began to get a little impatient, mostly at the lack of conversation. If only I get out of here, he remembered what Mito had said. How the apartment was surrounded by some sort of seal that would detect him. He tried it once, just to be curious. By accidentally, falling out the front door when he answered Emmy. He was immediately surrounded by some ninja, his guards. They were actually fairly cheery about it, understanding that it was an accident. They seemed casual and made it look like they weren't guarding him at all. Emmy was also there to help him out. It seemed she knew what he had done too, and was asked not to do again, ever. He wouldn't be able to get out without alerting anyone. If only I could sneak right past it, but how? If only I could teleport or something. He smiled at the thought. I can't though. An aura of hopelessness fell upon him. It was odd, something popped into his head. He blinked a few times, trying to comprehend what had happened. It was sudden and thrilling. He had no idea what had just occurred, but it was amazing. He smiled widely, standing up excitedly and somewhat startling Emmy as he did. He could hardly control himself. What's going on? She asked. I'll be right back, he replied hastily, quickly reaching his room. He could feel the seal emanating, beckoning to him. It was an odd feeling. He took out the scroll which contained the kunai, along with the two that was not inside. He decided to not summon more, he thought that two would do just fine. Deciding to test it out, he moved the kunai to the other side of the room, both of them into corners. He could feel it, the seals on the kunai. He prepared to do whatever it was, before he stopped himself. Something told him that it might be stupid to try and do both of them. Incredibly so. He took a deep breath and concentrated on a specific one, for some reason he closed his eyes. Trying to visualize the kunai, it helped in his concentration. He did, whatever it was. Suddenly feeling disorientated, like the entire world was flipped, he felt pain flash across his arm and bashed his head on something. From what he figured out, his was lane of the floor. What the hell? He opened his eyes, seeing the ceiling above. Wasn't I? He slightly positioned himself. Holy shit. Seeing as he wasn't where he thought he was. Naruto, what are you doing? Hearing Emi speak. Turning to his right, he saw the woman standing at the door. Why are you on the floor? Her voice with concern. Something really cool. He only focused on her earlier question. He could hardly contain his excitement. I don't think flaying around on the floor is cool. Not that. He stood eagerly. He made his way toward her to demonstrate. Look at this. He felt a disorientation once more. Emi appeared to be further away and upside down. He saw the clear shock on her face. He was able to catch himself before he landed on his head. Wow, was what all she could say. Isn't that cool? He said eagerly. He grabbed the three-pronged kunai and stood up once more. Shinobi or so. She seemed a little taken back. How did you that? I don't how to explain it really. He scratched his head. Something about space and time though, complicated stuff, but it just came naturally to him. But this is what makes me do it, mentioning to the item in his hand. It's the seal, being more specific as he traced the markings. Huh, with this, I can. He smiled anticipating. Hey Emi, what? He could give a mischievous smile. I still can't believe I've been helping you escape your confinement, what if we get caught? It almost happened several times now. Calm down, it's been 4 days, they haven't caught on at all. Naruto took in a deep breath of the air around him. He finally felt free, the claustrophobic atmosphere was entirely behind him. Thanks by the way, he wore a hat to help hide his blonde hair so that he wouldn't be immediately noticed by his appearance from afar. Although it was completely useless when used up close. We would be in so much trouble if we got caught. Hey, don't worry, you got that kunai on you, and there's one at Mito's place, he tried to reassure her. Emi had been a little anxious when they had started doing this. Although he could tell that she still somewhat enjoyed it. He would teleport back at the apartment when they saw someone they recognized. I guess. But it's fun, right? He suggested. Don't you get a thrill from it? Almost like ninjas and stuff, going on missions. She laughed then. I suppose, I would have thought you actually were a spy if the only thing we didn't do was eat ramen. Well, it's not my fault you always want to be sure no one checks on us all the time, he complained. It's a precaution, he shrugged, focusing on the building around him. They mostly just looked at unimportant buildings, wanting to get a nice look at the buildings around him. Sometimes going into random stores and seeing what they had. It's a bit sad, he heard Emi comment. Why's that? He asked, still inspecting every building that they passed by. Various stores were in plain sight, selling numerous items. People mulled about, merely going on with their day. Nothing could compare the fresh and free air instead of that apartment. Yes, the shackles had come off and he could explore. What if you never recover yourself? I mean going around and never knowing who you truly are, her voice cautious. Concerned. He thought a little about it, but it didn't worry him too much. He did have to be honest with himself though, he just felt this was better. For some reason. Was that bad? I'm sure I'll remember one day, he replied to her, lightly brushing her off. The last time he had recalled something was when he used the kunai. You seem pretty sure of yourself, he nodded. But what if you never do? Well, then I'll just become a new person, right? Giving his response. Besides, this place isn't so bad. I don't really know how you can say that, what of your friends? Well, Mito said that I might live in Konoha. They might still be there. He felt an odd pull, but it slipped away when he tried to recall it. You're not worried about the times you had with them? She asked. You won't remember them at all. All those memories will be lost. Well, I'll just become friends with them again, and I'll just make new memories with them, right? Emi sighed then as they continued to take in the sights of Uzushiogakure. If they're still my friends, I'm sure they won't mind. I'm not sure whether your optimism is infuriating or uplifting. I'd like to think it's uplifting, he replied. Feeling his stomach growl, he might as well eat something. I'm starving, let's eat again. I don't have money on me right now, she replied. Then I'll pay. How much money do you even have? Emi asked curiously. You've been paying for your own food for a while now. I dunno, but Mito seemed surprised by it though. He took out Gama-chan, it was still filled to the brim. Check it out, as he handed the wallet to her, which she took. After a few moments, Her eyes widened. Wow. She was left pretty much speechless. He was handed back the wallet, and he took a peek inside. He didn't exactly think it was too much, sure it was full to the brim, mostly. He just didn't think it was far too much. How can you carry that much? She said lowly. I don't see what the fuss is about. It's a lot, that's for certain. You can live in an apartment for a while. He didn't know too much, he just had to take her word for it though. As long as it's not ramen again. But I'm the one who's paying. I'm the one who set you free, she retorted. Okay, fine, he replied. They walked in silence for a while once more, before he remembered the coat he had in his room. Hey, does Mount Myoboku mean anything to you? He asked. Not really, we should check the library if you want. Does it have to do with anything with your memories? Yeah, it was written on the back of my cloak that was in my bag, he gave a thought. Sure, whatever, it wasn't like he had much to do at any point. But only after we eat something though. He took a look at the book settled on the table before him. He scratched his head as he looked at Emmy beside him. After they had eaten, they went straight to a library. The only thing he had to say about the building was that it looked incredibly mundane, it had a faint scent of musk. No doubt from the aged parchment, the old lady librarian had smelled no different. When they had entered, they had taken a look at some books. Mainly about geography. Such as the book right now. Well, take a look at it, Emmy pestered. Sure. He gave a plain reply. Looking for it was pretty boring as well. The book was about geography outside the 5 great elemental nations. Since they went through the others without any signs of what they were searching for. He flipped the cover, and went from page to page. Boring. As he continued to do so. Some minutes passed, quickly becoming repetitive. He wanted to see Mount Myoboku, but that didn't mean the action required made it exciting. Far better than staying inside the apartment though. Wait, there it is, Emmy said excitedly. He focused on the page of the book. Emmy's slender hand was pointing at a small picture, detailing an incredibly large mountain, spikes and jagged cliffs. Several smaller mountains were present, leading to the what he assumed was Mount Myoboku. Well, it looked large, it was hard to tell from the perspective. Doesn't seem there's a lot about it. She commented. Naruto found his interest spiking a little. As he read the information under the picture. A large mountain that no one has reached since its discovery. Its pathways, jagged and unstable cliffs leading to the mountain make it difficult to reach, even to shinobi. No one has reached its peak, as it seemed to have a maze-like roads leading to and up the mountain. The path to the mountain seemed to be devoid of life and resources. As numerous expeditions had to return from lack of food or water. A mysterious mountain indeed, lives were lost, expeditions disappearing in their struggle to tame the mountain. Its location is past the borders of the land of wind, almost a month's worth of travel. He lost interest as it went by, detailing other stuff. Still, it was pretty far. He looked for the date, seeing as it was published 2 years ago. He frowned, he hoped that it's still untamed, he wanted to be the first to climb it. So did you remember anything at all? Nah, nothing. He yawned. Let's get out of here, as he closed the book shut. Although he did have to wonder why his coat had its name. Mito felt it was quite tedious to escort the daimyo back to his city. Nonetheless, she had finally returned. She walked along with her grandfather, also eager to meet the person in her apartment. They walked through the large gates after being quickly checked in. So far it was midday, and it had been 2 weeks since she last set foot in her new home village. She pitied him, being stuck inside her apartment within that time frame. Although the insult towards her lacking apartment was unneeded. Speaking of which, she decided to use her sensory ability. She quickly found the approximation of her apartment, finding several shinobi around it, but not him. She felt her anger boil. He's not the sort to follow demands as he. She kept her composure, as to not alert the person she walked beside with. Her grandfather. Still, seeing as the shinobi assigned were still fixated around her apartment. It was clear that he was not in prison. Despite her anger, it was quite impressive that he had somehow escaped, seeing as there was only 3 possible points to do so. Along with a seal surrounding the apartment, not including the front door, alerting if he had trespassed. Her mind ran with possibilities of how that occurred. Hopefully no lasting damage was made. Before she was able to come to a conclusion. His kunai. How could she have forgotten? She was able to find him quickly, near the edge of the village. She took a deep breath. Trying to calm her nervousness, it would be a terrible first impression for her grandfather to meet him like this. Emmy, are you also responsible, seeing as the principle of the jutsu was based on time-space? Unless the object was thrown somewhere, but the idea that Emmy helped him seemed to be a higher possibility. Luckily, Shin bid farewell for now, seeing as he would at least allow him to get ready to meet the clan leader. She was quite thankful for that, it would give her enough time to get to where Naruto was. Emmy was beside him, nearly drowned out from his presence. She put a brisk pace through the town, seeing as Shin lived closer and Naruto was basically across the village. Deciding that she wouldn't take any chances, she easily took to the rooftops to cross the distance more quickly. Here she was trying to help him, attempting to find his home, and he himself might put a stop to that. Mito suppressed another sigh. Her sensory ability was passive, always active, at least up to 100 meters. She could control that distance to go further, at least to 30 kilometers. That required at least some concentration. When she actively controlled it, she could make precise locations of targets. Using her sensory abilities once more, she pinpointed the exact location. She almost found herself blushing at the intensity of the warmth of his chakra. His clearly stood out from the rest of the population. The rest seemed minuscule in positivity compared to his. Some of her reigned annoyance and anger fluttering away. It had been a while since she had sensed his chakra. Memory seemed a little pale to what she remembered. The time seemed to have an effect on that, seeming as she got quickly accustomed to his chakra when he was still unconscious. His certainly seemed to be brighter than others, as most were quite normal and seemed clouded. Madara and Hashirama's were quite clear, like Naruto's. Hashirama's own chakra made her feel content. Was it possible her mood was being partly influenced by Naruto? Not that she wasn't depressed, she was actually quite content with her life. Her sister was safe and living her life normally, away from danger. Mito's own life was not filled with danger anymore, merely calm days and no worrying about what might occur next week. Before, the average shinobi's life wasn't like that, nor would it last forever, it seemed. She didn't dwell on that, and would merely enjoy the time of peace while it lasted. Whether it lasted years or not. Sensing his happy chakra, it made her feel slightly better, a little more hopeful. Bright was nice word, along with warmth to describe it. She still felt some anger at him, but it lessened some. Getting back on track. Imbecile. Yes, that seemed to be a correct word at the moment. He lacked tact, in most cases. Impolite, and his language was crude. But he was honest, and carried unusual full-heartedness in what he said. He was almost like a child in that manner, to be brutally honest. It was almost refreshing, at least, compared to the shinobi world. He was a ninja, no doubt. It was a little mysterious as to how he maintained how he was, if it truly was him. What would happen if he suddenly remembered who he was? Would that person who he was now fade away? She could ask herself many questions concerning him. Like the shadow clone jutsu that was found within his memories. It was Tobirama's jutsu. It wasn't exactly widespread, but so far it was only known in the Senju clan. Who is he? Perhaps he was apprenticed to Tobirama, but she needed concrete results, and bringing him to Konoha would solve that. The Yamanaka said his past was non-existent, nothing entirely revealing. It was like someone stole those memories away, seemingly no way to retrieve them. Did someone take them, or did he just lose them? Finding that she was near them, she jumped down below to the ground. He facing the other away, walking side by side with her sister. He wore a hat, no doubt a lame attempt at concealing himself. Blending in with the scenery. She couldn't create a scene, not if he successfully gotten away from his guards. She performed the Shunshin Jutsu, and flickered in front of him. Both individuals stopped at her sudden entrance. A moment later, Emi's face contorted in horror, but Naruto's expression was blank. He blinked a few times. Oh, he said, eyes widening in what she presumed was in his shock. He chuckled nervously. Well, I don't think saying how badass you look in that gear is going to help, huh? Mito ignored the comment and took a deep calming breath, speaking low enough so that it would seem that they were casually speaking in the middle of the street. Body language said otherwise. I assume you escaped out with the kunai, and with the help of Emmy? She asked. Yeah, Emmy lightly hit him for ratting her out. Obviously unneeded. Mito sighed exasperatedly. Did anyone see you? She asked harshly. He squirmed from her gaze, but he shook his head. Where's the kunai? Emmy quickly dug into her pocket and she was handed the three-pronged tool and inspected it for a moment. Naruto approached. Look, I'll show you. A firm hand was placed on her shoulder. She felt an odd wave of disorientation. The background changing quickly, the bright exterior changing into a dark, closed space. The startling feeling of the ground disappearing under her feet, only for her feet to grasp solid footing once more. She nearly stumbled but was able to right herself. She blinked, trying to comprehend the odd sensation. Her vision adjusted to the change in lighting. Isn't that awesome? Naruto said excitedly. Never do that again without warning me. She inspected her surroundings, recognizing it as the room where Naruto stayed in. I thought telling you was enough. She ignored that statement, and glared at him. Still angry at how he had risked getting caught in his escape. He looked visibly nervous once more. You betrayed my trust, Naruto. I'm not sorry, but I'm not sorry. Being stuck here was the worst. Was his reply. He continued to rant a little more. You're not one to follow rules, are you? He shrugged. Mito shook her head in disbelief, but she didn't think she had much time. My grandfather is coming over soon to personally see you, so teleport me outside so I can return normally without arousing suspicion. He merely looked at the kunai in his hand. Ops. He chuckled a moment later. We just left Emmy too. It was completely unnecessary, courtesy of the blonde in her apartment, but she was able to convince the guarding shinobi that it was really her. Her excuse was that she was experimenting on a new seal, teleportation, ironically. She had also given some personal information that she knew about the guards as a precaution. Fortunately, they had believed in her lie. Seeing as their assignment was finished, they cleared away from her apartment, seeing as it was completed. It was simple luck that there wasn't any sensory shinobi in the small squad. After that, she then got changed out of her shinobi gear and into more comfortable clothing. Mito still felt annoyance at Naruto, but it wasn't exactly the time for an argument. She was a little weary of the day's travel, and desired to relax for a little. A visit to the hot springs seemed tremendously enticing at the moment. Before that though, Shin wanted to meet with Naruto. She was seated on the love seat in her living room. She could feel Shin's chakra approaching, minutes away. Naruto sat across from her, looking a little sheepish from his earlier actions. I'll make it up to you, he promised. Mito didn't feel like instigating an argument at the moment. His expression spoke of his commitment to his words. So she took his word for that. Let me just explain what will be occurring now. You can refuse or you can accept. Naruto nodded in understanding. She then explained of how she would be possibly living in Konoha due to a long-term mission. Although she would be able to rotate responsibilities for that, so that she could get some time off the mission, just like all the other individuals that would be researching along with her. I've explained to the Senju clan leader of your predicament. He was glad to have someone potentially lost return to their village, she finished. It's your choice whether or not you desire to accept his invitation. Yeah, sure, I'll come, he replied casually. Quote. Okay. We leave in another week. We'll be traveling by foot along with other shinobi. Within that time frame, I'll help foresee your skills as a shinobi. So we'll be training? He asked excitedly. A nod from her made him celebrate a little. It's great that you're back. Naruto smiled brilliantly. She couldn't help but return the gesture as his heartfelt relief, his genuine delight. He did bear his emotions, clear as day for everyone to see. Naruto sat down on the love seat, scratching his head in confusion. Though, he bore a smile to sway the woman across from him from asking any questions. Her return had caused feelings to surface. There were some odd, somewhat conflicting emotions rummaging about in him. Judging by Mito's relieved expression, she had no idea that he was a little angry. He guessed that either she was terrible at gauging others, or that he wasn't so transparent. Maybe it had something to do with her being tired, but he liked to think it was all of them. That wasn't exactly the highest of his concerns. He should be more angry. Hell, he wanted to be more enraged. Being imprisoned and getting his mind searched without his consent, which in fact, he probably would have given them permission to do because he wanted to find out whom he was. That's what he identified in himself. It made him a little puzzled at that. That was not the abundant feeling in him though. It was relief. Assured. What's the word? He just felt like it wasn't that big of a deal. Everything that had occurred to him over the past month, regardless whether it was painstakingly boring, it just seemed better. The hell? Yeah, that sure was an odd thought. Better than what? All he obtained was a blank memory and something else retarded to deal with. He wanted answers now, damn it. Troublesome. Naruto mumbled. He could only lament at how perfect that word suited his predicament. Pardon? Mito asked. Deciding not to reveal those thoughts, he asked something else he was curious about. So when's the old fart going to come around? She had an expression of bewilderment. That's my grandfather you're talking about, replying sternly. I didn't mean it in a bad way. I mean I finally get to meet the guy. You know, you always talk about him. He did help raise you and your sister, right? He seems pretty cool and stuff. Mito looked subdued, obviously drowsy. She merely sighed. He did, but if you say so, I hope you don't refer to him that way, but he should be here in a minute or so. He smirked. None of his earlier frustration seemed to have returned. Be more angry, damn it. It was too late, however. He could feel himself merely accepting it. He sighed, raising a brow from Mito. So what else could you tell me about the Uzumaki clan? Asking something to pass the time, and to fill the void of silence that made him slightly uncomfortable. Noise made everything better in his opinion. Anything specific? I dunno, it's not like I remember anything, Naruto stated. Right. Perhaps I should generalize about the way of life before the village, he nodded, mentioning for her to continue. I suppose it can be said of other clans as well, but I can't be certain. If there was one thing he knew, it was that she liked to be knowledgeable. She could probably flaunt herself because he didn't know a lot of things, but she didn't give off that feeling. He was a perfect subject, mainly because of his amnesia. Hopefully. Our people were semi-nomadic, never staying in an area for too long. He was about to ask why before she explained it. We were not the largest clan nor the most powerful, so we couldn't stay in one area for too long, lest we be discovered and destroyed. Our clan is knowledgeable with seals, however, so we're fairly confident that our location could be kept secret for the time being. She droned on a little more, so he felt like he shouldn't have suggested that topic. It wasn't that it wasn't a little interesting, but he did like to talk sometimes too. He would have stopped her, but he did like the way she talked. Firm, with carefully articulated words, quiet but with just enough volume. His head certainly felt a little weird. She seemed to have finished talking, and he had no idea what were her last words. So he went for a different approach. So what's up with Emmy? Is she not a ninja? I mean, how did that happen? He might as well humor her a bit, at least until her grandfather came. She gave pause, likely figuring out what to say with her response. How do we think we grow? She asked rhetorically. People are married into the clan. We are most often staying near a town to easily replenish supplies or to guard them. My own father himself was married into the clan. Not all aged civilians could be trained, however, or as effectively, but we did need professions to sustain ourselves better, rather than rely exclusively on the income of missions from feudal lords. Some clans did dissolve with lack of forethought when they couldn't sustain themselves at rough times. Not really what he asked, but he got some insight concerning her family. Thankfully, she answered his question next. She smiled sadly. As with the situation with Emmy, she was often plagued with sickness in her youth. Highly unusual, especially with one of Uzumaki descent. Her voice was softer. I helped care for her when our parents were gone, along with my grandfather. Emmy was much shorter than her elder sister, so that might have helped their height, despite their 2-year difference. He gave a wide smile. You really care for her, don't you? I think you did a pretty great job. Man, I wonder if I have any siblings. I think I would be the coolest brother ever. She gave a more genuine smile this time, however small that it was. It was definitely an improvement in his opinion. A knock sounded on the door at that moment, and Mito quickly stood up to answer it. A gruff old man stepped inside. His aged appearance and serious expression spoke of pressing matters. However, it seemed his eyes spoke a little differently though. Naruto also noted he was younger than he initially thought, and also he had a good beard going on. The aged man walked over to him, Mito trailing behind him. My name is Shin Uzumaki, grandfather of Mito right here. It's nice to finally meet you. His hand held between them for a handshake. Naruto quickly stood up, grabbing the gruff man's hand. What's up, old man? He smiled in amusement at the sharp intake of breath of Mito. Her eyes widened in surprise, glaring kunai at him. Name's Naruto. I would tell you more, but I don't really have a damn idea of anything else other than that. Shin's expression didn't change, but he could see the nearly hidden amusement in his surprisingly lively eyes. Naruto was also aware of Mito's hilarious reaction, worrying about her grandfather's response. He wasn't concerned about it though. Shin let out a hearty chuckle. I suppose we can be casual, it's a good thing too. I'm weary of all the formalities in the past few weeks. Naruto smirked. Alright, that's great. That's too much work for me too. I'd probably wouldn't do it even if I was forced to. Shin nodded in agreement, along with a laugh. Mito was seemingly surprised, but she shook her head and seated herself on the couch opposite of him, along with Shin. He didn't seem to be in trouble at the moment, at least, until Shin left the room. I just wanted to formally apologize, he started. What for? Naruto asked. That person didn't follow through on my specific orders. He's a person who wished to protect his village, the older man laughed. I probably should have written down the exact orders for Mito to receive, but I wanted to strengthen our clan's ties. Oh, that's alright really. Trust is important, right? He nodded in agreement. It's a bit different than from what I'm used to. Multiple clans under my care. We were never in a position when we had to attack each other before the villages formed. So we're just on shaky terms. Well, I think you will do pretty well. I mean, you're old, so you should know stuff, right? Naruto replied. Mito had a somewhat agreeing look with that. She would have probably said it differently though, with more needlessly complicated words. Mito watched the exchange between her grandfather and Naruto. Their discussion ranged from various unimportant subjects, from food, stories, and his circumstance. Casual, it seemed, which she participated in with a little. Ah, yes, before I forget, may I see you perform the seal on that kunai? Her grandfather asked. Sure, Naruto replied. A blink later revealed that he magnificently disappeared. It was quite the sight to see. Her sensory ability revealed that he was nearby, in his room. That sure is. Shin seemed impressed. He exchanged a particular look. He was caught. She kept herself calm. It seemed he grandfather remembered something she had forgotten. He merely shrugged. There's something about him. He played with his beard. I had a sensory type track him with specific orders, but he reported nothing that would endanger us, he added. There was a reason why he was entrusted care of the village. A secondary plan if the first should fail. Are you? She started to ask, but Shin merely shook his head. Naruto came waltzing it back in before any more could be said. Mito carefully observed her grandfather. He was surprisingly relaxed. Even in the presence of someone new. It was like this with her sister as well. This was more significant, however. So she could only guess that Naruto wasn't in any sort of danger. Naruto sat down once again across from them, the tri-pronged kunai in his hand. Smirking as he looked at the looks that he got from her grandfather. From her as well, it was no wonder he could easily bypass the seal around the apartment. Emi had helped obviously. Emi suddenly appeared through the unlocked door, making everyone turn towards her. Naruto, I can't believe you just left me out there. I had to walk all the way over here alone. Oh, sorry. Naruto apologized, rubbing the nape of his neck. I'm not sure what to say, I just forgot. Mito could only feel amused. Even if Naruto didn't hastily reveal his technique, Emi would have blown his cover wide open. Her grandfather sent glances around the room, inspecting the others, bemused. The blonde seating across from her still hadn't caught on just yet. She replied, her hands firmly placed on her hips. Her eyes widened when she saw their grandfather, but she quickly masked herself. Hey sis, grandpa. Finally nice to see you all back. Momentarily distracted, Shin gave a warm greeting, along with everyone else. It's okay, Emmy, she hinted, from which she quickly caught on. She was immediately relaxed, also seeing that her Shin writing seemed to be displeased in any way. Emmy nodded and turned back to Naruto once more. Did you forget about me because Mito came back? She turned towards the blonde, expecting something from him. Yeah, he spoke honestly and bluntly. She was surprised by that response, and was honestly. She scared the hell out of me, he continued. I mean, I had no idea what to do, so I tried to distract her with this thing, displaying the kunai in his hand. She gathered herself as quickly as she could. She ignored him as her sister laughed and take a seat beside the blonde. It is fun teleporting around like that, especially if you do it fast. She took a loud sigh. So what was going on? Mito briefly took a moment to explain the gist of things. Shin cleared his throat. Naruto, I was going to ask how it worked. You didn't seem to perform any hand seals when you did it. The whiskered man gave a blank stare. Huh, what the hell are seals? With hands. Mito nudged in, letting out a chuckle. He seems to be able to do it without understanding some of the basics. That's interesting, Shin commented. Tell me, what can you tell me of it? Perhaps we can deduce the origins. It took a moment for him to reply. Well, all I know that it involves time and space, but I don't know how or why. I have to concentrate on one of them, because I think something bad will happen otherwise. You also have to visualize and position yourself or you land on your. He nodded sagely but otherwise continued. I can bring someone else with me too, so I can do that stuff for them. I wonder how big I can bring something with me or how far. I'm not sure any of that would actually help. I don't think I know anything else honestly. Naruto also knows the shadow clone jutsu, Mito added. I do, he said. What's that? It sounds pretty cool. One of the jutsu from Tobirama Senju. Shin reflected. Mito quickly explained to Naruto who he was, the brother of Hashirama. Shin thought for a couple moments, as Naruto and Emi began to talk a little more. That technique could certainly become quite powerful in the right hands and used correctly. Someone could easily bypass any barriers that may have been placed in any area, as long as they're not physical barriers. Well, Shin started, the others grew attentive. Her grandfather turned serious, straightening his poster and raised his voice to a more leadership level. Naruto, if it turns out that you are not from Konohagakure, then I extend an offer for you to join our village and clan. She was not expecting that. It was now obvious that he approved him of going to Konoha. Looking over to Naruto, she saw her surprised sister looking expectantly at him too. He was actually relaxed, and not being jubilant as she thought he would. Maybe he didn't understand the importance or significance. So I would be an Uzumaki then? Naruto simply asked. Yes, you would be, if you chose so. Naruto leaned back, sighing. His chakra was reminiscent of one. Except, there were plenty of signs going towards that he was from Konohagakure. Perhaps someone in the clan had disappeared off and entered the Senju clan that would explain his jacket. To remember their origins, so he should be recognized by someone when they got to Konoha. It should be that simple. Shin stood up from the couch, heading towards the door. Well, I suppose it's my time to say goodbye for now. Mito, you and the others will be leaving in a week's time, along with Naruto of course. Naruto joined in. Later old guy, joining in on the farewell with them, much louder than necessary as Shin chuckled and left the building. I can't believe you kept calling him that, Mito stated. Well, he's old. That's true. Emi agreed. Mito looked at her sister. Don't encourage him. Naruto stood up exuberantly. Ah well, whatever. Who wants to get some ramen? Effectively ending the conversation, she stood up, not really minding what was for dinner. Today, she needed to rest and help train Naruto. She guessed that it wouldn't take too long. He did perform a jutsu that seemed complex to master. Holy shit, it's hot, Naruto yelled. With surprising speed, he proceeded to strip right before her. Before she could properly react or avert her eyes, he already had the majority of his clothes disregarded and with the help of a chakra-induced jump, performed a cannonball into the lake water. Sighing, she wiped off the sweat building on her brow and walked to shoreline. She had no clothes to change into, but putting her feet into the water would be sufficient enough to cool off. After she took off her socks and sandals, she submerged her feet. Today was certainly hotter than she had initially thought, so it was relieving to cool herself off in the water. Birds sung their song loudly in the trees. The water gleamed brilliantly from the brightness of the sun. So far it was a pleasant day. It wasn't really a beach, but there were some dry sand before the higher patch of land. She took a seat on a nearby partially submerged rock. It probably would have been perfect if they were not training. Naruto was still somewhere underneath the surface, and had been for a couple of minutes. He came about for fresh air a moment later. That's much better, letting out a pleased sigh. He swam relaxingly a while as they both cooled off, partaking in some small talk in their break for the meantime. Her mind wandered randomly, not particularly staying on one subject for long. She remembered talking to her grandfather about why he had offered Naruto to join the village. He simply explained that it was because she trusted him, but it was a last-minute decision of his. There was also that he didn't seem to mean any harm to anyone. You're comfortable with him too, he added when she gave her observations. She had known that. She looked over the relaxing atmosphere. Mito had come to this place in particular in mind, a small freshwater lake with a nearby clearing for spars. It was suitable for training. There was some newly built training grounds near the village, but were reserved for the up-and-coming young ninja. For now, until others were created. The lake was for water walking. Surprisingly, he had some trouble with the tree walking technique, taking him an entire day to get it done. He did, however, kept going, without a single break. Perhaps she was too optimistic about him being a natural at everything. How does someone like Naruto, capable of performing an advanced sealing technique, struggle with a simple exercise? She couldn't pinpoint him sometimes. The water walking technique was a little more difficult than the initial one, and he also had no talent for combat, if their earlier relaxed spars were of any indication. She had initially started from the top, of more advanced techniques. To see if he remembered any of his training, it was fruitless however. So they had to start from the bottom tier. At least she wasn't teaching a civilian, as he had a better grasp on some mechanics. He was still a ninja, albeit poor one with his amnesia. If she didn't get him up to speed on combat, he might be a possible liability of the off chance that battles were to occur. It wasn't too much of a problem, but it certainly would add some unnecessary trouble to an all-shinobi group. It also wouldn't bode well with Hashirama when she went all the way with asking him to house a potentially useless person who couldn't help with their research. After several minutes, she decided that it was time to resume Naruto's training. Naruto, she called out, seeing him still swimming in the water. What's up? He voiced, his water-soaked bang nearly hid his eyes. Come back to the shore, I want to show you something, no need to put on your clothes. After a quick return, he popped out from the water. He was obviously lean, like a shinobi should be at the least. Now conscious of his appearance, she averted her eyes. Luckily her small little glance was left unnoticed by him. He stood there expectantly with shining curiosity. Standing from out of the water, she channeled chakra to her feet. This is the next exercise you'll be accomplishing. Taking steps out into the surface, water rippling as she walked further out, a nice distance away for him to reach. When she turned around, Mito once again found his face filled with some awe. Alright, I'm totally gonna learn that. That's cool, he said, preparing to walk before she had a chance to explain, falling straight into the shallow water. He splashed around before he surfaced once more. At least let me explain, she said to him. Right, go ahead, as he stepped out. His expression filled with eagerness and surprising determination. Channel chakra to your feet like the tree walking exercise, but this time it needs to be continually flowing and constantly adjust with the water, she explained a little more of the mechanics of before he tried once again. His eyes closed in concentration as he focused on collecting his chakra. She seen a sight that was most curious. She inched closer to him. Oblivious to the ever-widening steps she took to place herself in a better position. A seal, black as ink, was quickly becoming apparent on his abdomen. It fully formed, but it seemed cracked, broken. Some lines were misplaced, not aligning with the circle that formed. There seemed to be a missing piece associated with the odd seal, What would be 8 muddled little blobs was instead 6. The center of it was completely blackened. She slightly bent down to inspect it, fascinated by the seemingly broken seal. Never seeing such thing like it. A sudden scream made her flinch. Gah! Naruto fell over, making her aware of how close she was. She was just about to bend down to see. She ignored any possible embarrassing connotations with her actions. He babbled incoherently, not that she wanted to find out what he's saying. He quickly stood up. What the hell were you doing? You scared the hell out of me. There was a seal on your stomach. His expression was wary, disbelieving. There's nothing there, as he looked down below. Are you? She interrupted. Just channel chakra and look once again. He hesitated, an odd look formed on his face. Unreadable to her. She gestured pleadingly with her hands to continue with her suggestion. His brow was furrowed, but he did what she had said anyway. As he channeled chakra, he looked below once again. His expression contorting in surprise. Oh cool. What is it? I don't know, but it's a seal. It was all that she could say really. Damn, I'm really tired of that, it's like. He sighed exasperatingly, his hand resting on the back of his head. The seal on his stomach disappearing as he stopped. I can probably check to see what it may be. Another seal that she didn't know. It was nice occasion to try and figure out its properties. Yeah, sure, he concentrated to form chakra. Taking some steps closer to him before she stopped. Quote. Perhaps you should lay down to get comfortable, she suggested. It might take some time to examine. Yeah, right, as he laid on the sand, fidgeting to get himself comfortable. She sat cross-legged beside him, he then sorted to channel chakra once more. The seal becoming visible on his abdomen. Well, this is a little weird, he commented. She ignored him, trying to figure out what the seal accomplished. She already deduced that she might not find much, especially since it was damaged. Her little sealing techniques would give her some results. Some time passed as she performed them, and she watched it disappear before her eyes. Mito looked over at his face, a snore escaping from him. It's only been 15 minutes. Letting out a sigh, she shook him awake. What happened? Naruto asked drowsily. You fell asleep. Oh, well, hurry up. The seal reappeared once more. She guessed that she wouldn't be surprised if he fell asleep again, but she continued to work. She continued with her seals and tried to redraw the seal on his stomach in the sand, seeing as she had no spare piece of parchment nearby. It took a while, but she tried to recreate what might be the appearance of it. It had no power of what it may have been, or anything like it. Just the outline. Done. She carefully double-checked her work. She wasn't able to fully piece it apart and deduce the full extent of its properties, but she felt that it was all that she could do. From what Mito had found out, the jutsu present on his abdomen was meant to seal something in. Not like an item, or something like that. That wouldn't require such a complex seal, or a large one. It was for something living. It was broken, however, whatever it was had escaped. Perhaps that had something to do with his memory lost. A small and weak theory that couldn't be supported, however. Other theories had more strength. Only Kumo, at least that's what had been heard, had created something like that. Is he from Kumo? After a little more thought, it didn't make whole lot of sense. Konoha seemed a whole lot more likely. He fell asleep again, lasting longer than last time, however. She was done, so there was nothing else that could be done. But, perhaps it may have left remnants. Thankful for her sensory abilities, she started a search in the vicinity of the seal. She focused in deeper, looking for anything foreign that was present. It should have been easier to find something that was unique, but she found herself being wrong in her assumption. She had to search several times to even find a trace of it. There was something small, tiny, nearly insignificant. It was difficult to pinpoint what it was. Naruto's chakra was drowning it out with its potency. It was most likely chakra from something, or someone, but she could not identify it. Something up, because, I've been laying down for forever now, somewhat startling her. I'm finished, she replied. You look and sound disappointed, as he finally sat up, shrugging off some of the sand that clung to him. I guess it didn't really lead anywhere, huh? Or much. It did not. It'll probably become clear when I recover who I am or meet someone, or maybe I'll never remember and it'll forever remain an unsolvable riddle or something like that. What's the point of a riddle if it can't be solved? She retorted. Not finding the answers would leave some insufferable loose ends. Having his memories apparently non-existent was already such a blow. He continued to remember things, however, so he might recall something that was important. I hope I never remember, just to spite you. You can't keep flinching and continuing to run away. You won't be able to defend yourself with such lackluster taijutsu skills, Mito berated the blonde standing across from her. You keep kicking that's why I'm running away, Naruto whined, rubbing his cheek from an earlier punch. Your form is all over the place, either too stiff or too sloppy, there's not enough power most of the time. I'm no taijutsu specialist, but you're performing below expectations, she rubbed her temple to ease her frustration. There hadn't been a whole lot of progress since then, but they weren't as focused as they were right now. In 2 days' time they were to leave Uzushiogakure. He was still just as terrible since they began. We've trying to do that same thing, over and over again, maybe it's time we try another approach. He suggested. I'm just as frustrated as you know. Oh really? What do you think that we should just do then? She asked. He shrugged. I dunno. Helpful. Well, he went quiet for a moment, contemplating his words. Maybe you can bring someone else to teach. Are you saying I'm an atrocious teacher? Mito questioned sternly. What? Where did you get that from? I didn't say anything like that. He scratched his head as Mito tried to calm her nerves. I'm just saying that we should trying something different, other than doing the same few stuff with small differences. I mean it's not working, is it? I suppose so. As both devolved into silence as they tried to formulate suggestions. She had to admit that Naruto certainly kept going, wearing her out near the end of the day. He was doing more than herself as well. She took pride that she was one of the best kunoichi in the village. Overall, along with the male population too. Mito had to wonder how he was in his natural state. I got it. Emmy once said to me that I should just let things come naturally to me, so maybe we should do that, Naruto recommended. She shook her head, giving her reply. And how are we supposed to go about that if we've attempting that from the beginning? No, you've been telling me what to do and what was wrong, just let me be and figure it out. It didn't look it might succeed, but she might as well humor him. Who knows, it might actually work, but she wasn't going to place all her hopes on it. She readied her stance. Well then, let's try, shall we? He still stood there, however, a hand placed under his chin in a thoughtful gesture. Wait, how about you go all out too? Don't give me any time to think and stuff. Are you certain? Yeah, you already have been beating me for days now, and besides it's different now. It'll just hurt a little bit more, Naruto finished. She thought about it. No giving him time to react, or to think. Just relying on instinct. Was she giving him too much time to think? Was she too lenient? Giving him a little too much time to think to the point of second-guessing himself. Perhaps she going a little too easy on him, not pushing him hard enough. To really get results, if they were present she would have to attack whilst he was unprepared. Along with her full speed. I understand what you're trying to convey, she answered. Allowing herself to be surprised would defeat the purpose. So she mentally prepared her next moves that she would use against him. Alright, just give me a moment too. She performed a jutsu, the body flicker for faster accelerated movement. She appeared right beside him, surprise clearly written on his face. She gave him no time or any slight act of mercy. Faster than when she sparred with him, she performed a roundhouse kick aimed for his torso. He caught it, whereas he wasn't able to do before. She continued to send a barrage of punches and kicks, as quickly as she could. His expression changed to a concentrated look, his eyes shining. His movements flowing flawlessly to one another instead of the sloppy and pitiful ones. She threw a punch, he grabbed it easily and attempted to grab it with his other hand. She broke free, but not before he failed to restrain her with his free hand. She jumped back, throwing blunted shuriken towards him. He pulled out one of his kunai to deflect them. Landing quickly, she blinked as the tools she threw was about to reach her target. At that moment, she felt something cold press against her neck. Orange and yellow filling her vision. Naruto had appeared right before her with his kunai in his hand. If this was a death match, he would have emerged victorious. Silence. Did I just win? As he dropped his arm to his side. It seems so, and your idea actually worked, she gave light praise, almost reluctantly. Cool, he reacted, which wasn't much. Perhaps he was modest when it came to achievements he performed himself. She had initially expected him to wail in victory, jumping around excitedly. It was tame, like when he was able to water walk, tree walk and other things. So how were able to appear before me? I thought your jumps were limited to those seals, she asked as she looked for anything solid that he had slipped on her. Yeah, there's one on you, he shrugged. Mito blinked several times, there was no kunai on her. When did he? It took a moment for her to remember that she was weakly grabbed beforehand. She inspected her wrist, finding a seal similar to one on his special kunai. He caught the sight. Oh cool, I could do that too. Can you take it off? Offering her wrist to him. He looked at it for a few moments. Yeah, he replied. I have no idea. He laughed, rubbing the nape of neck once again. Try it. The seal made her slightly uncomfortable. She could easily be found and he could appear, anywhere. Well, I'll try, he said earnestly, placing a nice firm hold on her wrist as he placed a palm on her seal. Retreating it, only to find that it was still present. He repeated this dozens of times, only to fail each time. Never mind, as she retreated her wrist from his pleasant grasp. I honestly don't know Mito, he replied, a apologetic smirk on his face. It's okay, I'll just take it off myself later on, she replied. It's getting late, perhaps we should go back now. Naruto carefully took off the towel around his waist and quickly dipped into the hot springs. It had been about a week now. Tomorrow was the day they were supposed to leave. He felt the hot moisture enter his lungs as he took calm breaths. The near scalding water of the hot springs calmed his muscles, a little sore from the training that he had done. He gave some greetings to the few other guys present in the hot springs, but didn't seem interested in conversing any further. Proceeding to a nearby corner, he merely decided to try and relax for a bit. It was for still felt restless, especially so for when he alone. Those weeks being stuck in the apartment did nothing to help that. He tried to talk to the nearest guy but it seemed he was finished, quickly exiting the water. Great. No one to talk to. If he had to be honest with himself, he was slightly frustrated. He could feel the hot pressure building slowly over in his head since he had arrived here, even with the return of Mito didn't help with that regard. The reasoning was that he was lost, completely so. He had no clear direction, he had to do something, but the largest problem was that he had no idea what it was or what to do. If he didn't have that looming feeling, he could probably ignore all that. Except it just wouldn't go away. He clearly had no identity, nothing quite familiar to work on. Just vagueness, cluttered and hidden by fog. God damn did he hate things like that. Even he wasn't sure whether Naruto was his own name. That name and the gear that he apparently had was all he had to work with. There was Mount Myoboku, that no one had apparently ever been to. Then there was Konohagakure, which sparked nothing of familiarity in him. Perhaps he could reveal his insecurities to Mito and Emi, but he wasn't quite sure he wanted to burden them any more than he had to. After all, it was his problem to deal with. The training was a nice distraction, but it didn't necessarily give him a sense of satisfaction. Even if it was frustratingly hard, for some reason. Whenever he completed an exercise like the tree walking exercise, all he felt that he should have been able to do it. He didn't feel any sort of accomplishment through those seemingly tiny achievements. He grumbled in the water, bubbles flowing out. He looked at his surroundings, it wasn't grand, as it was a small place. Fairly bare when it came to the amount of costumers though. Naruto released a yawn and leaned back a bit, trying and failing to relax himself. Mito was situated somewhere on the other side of the wall. A small thought formed in his mind. She was obviously, and then he heard that humming tune she sung several times before. He was suddenly intrigued by this, knowing it was Mito on the other side, Emi was supposed to be there. He wasn't curious about the tune however. Naruto paused, suddenly alert of his thought process. He looked around to see guys, most of them sat away from the wall. What the hell? Am I a pervert? No. Denying it. It wasn't his fault. Not at all. Now he felt that slip once more, another nagging feeling. Yes, those perverse thoughts stemmed from someone else. Or was it completely natural to feel that way? Then there was seal that was on her wrist. He could feel it calling, beckoning to him like a loyal dog. It seemed more like an angry guard dog though. She had said that was keyed to him and she couldn't take it off. Nor put on any counter seals to nullify the effects. At least, not without any unforeseen consequences. So he was entrusted to not take advantage of it. Naruto, I should let you know that you should consider my grandfather's words when you two met, hearing Mito's voice sound. He had initially thought it was just his imagination, but other things were said. He gulped audibly, completely forgotten that she was a sensory type, and would always feel his presence nearby. Sure, he guessed that was a good thing. Being disappointed was a sure tell sign that he was perverse. Wiping those thoughts away, at least Mito thought well of him, enough to think that he wasn't that kind of person. No accusations, that was a good sign. He recalled some of Emi's little input on her older sister. He was also explained by her sister that she was a little haughty. That much he knew at least. She always had this sense of superiority because she ate correctly, or spoke in such a civilized way. As long as the meaning came across, or the food entered his belly, everything was okay. Better than okay, it was perfection in his opinion. It didn't mean to be so pointlessly complicated. He didn't exactly voice his opinion as of yet, but it didn't matter all the much to him. Maybe it was who she was, he didn't mind that. Kind too, but a little bit condescending. It was nice to knock her down a pegs at times. Plus, her reactions were hilarious. She was being ordered to help him, that much he knew, at least partly. Not anymore if he knew now. He did his best to understand the reasoning to protect her village. His life was insignificant compared to the entire village. He was a potential danger to them. The world didn't revolve around him, nor could he change it alone. Another feeling welled up before it disappeared once more, but he had a feeling that it had to do with his earlier thoughts. Disregarding it, seeing as he had several of those already. He had already talked to Emi about it, letting things come naturally and not force it. Hey Mito, it seemed a little odd to talk like this, he'd rather talk face to face. Yes, what might have happened if I were to have popped up anywhere else? Like in another village? He asked. She took a moment to answer. Other than Konohagakure, this is just conjecture on my part, to put it bluntly, you might have been killed. He flinched a little. He would have been defenseless, if his sparring matches were of any indication. Thanking whatever entity or event that had landed him near Uzushiogakure. He probably wouldn't have been given the same offer as the old man did. So why are the two villages so special? There are many clans that joined the different villages, not all of them are quite as forgiving as Uzumaki, although, that has caused some grief as well. She said rather emotionlessly, but went back to her original voice a moment later. The Senju would likely have done the same as Hashirama Senju, their clan leader, is quite a generous person. I should meet this guy, I have a feeling he's someone I would like, he replied. Along with others that are coming with us, we are staying at his compound, I have told you that before. Right, I wasn't really listening because you kept talking that time. He was met with silence for several long moments. And what do you mean by that? She said rather icily. Nothing bad I swear, I just like listening to you talk. She didn't reply to that. So why weren't you so worried? Naruto asked. Again, another long moments passed. He let out a sigh of relief when she began to talk again. We were friendly with the Senju clan, and by default with the Yamanaka clan. Their clan jutsu is especially useful for such a thing. So my grandfather and I were confident with someone like you. I imagine other villages wouldn't have taken such a chance. There was some muffled murmuring that he couldn't catch, but loud laughing was soon heard. It was Emi's, if he could recall. Apparently catching up with her sister. Be quiet. Hearing Mito berating her little sister, but they didn't seem to talk anymore after that. He relaxed, wondering what was so funny to Emi. Plenty of things were going to happen now. Tomorrow, they would finally traverse to Konoha, along with several other shinobi of Uzushiogakure. Then, well, he wasn't sure so about those other things. Naruto. He heard the voice of Emi sound from the other side of the barrier. Briefly, a vague impression of her also in a state of undress appeared. Damn it, he muttered under his breath before speaking up. What's up? We're going to go talk with our friends, bye. Alright. Not getting an answer. He decided to wait around the water, trying to ignore the seal he accidentally placed on Mito's wrist. Tomorrow morning they were supposed ready for days of travel. He had a dream when he slept that night. He was walking through wreckage of rusted steel and decayed wood, making his way through worn and old buildings. He found himself standing on a fallen pillar overlooking destroyed wreckage. It was unrecognizable, some turned over buildings had fallen into a nearby river. The area might have once looked impressive at one point, if it wasn't obliterated. He remembered thinking that it was a very odd dream. Walking through the area, he was here for something though, what that might be was lost on him. He trudged on however, impatience coursing through him. From the surrounding decrepit buildings, many others joined in his search. Naruto, are you ready? He turned around to see Mito standing there by the doorway to his room, a small pack shouldered on her back. She probably used seals, just like him. She was likely oblivious to him knowing that he had figured that stuff out. I wasn't too hard, if he could take stuff out, he could put stuff in. Remembering the seal was a pretty nifty thing too. Yup, I'm all packed and roaring to go, he answered, flinging the pack onto his back. He also had such a fantastic idea, and couldn't wait to start it. Actually, right now was probably as good as it could get. Let me see. Alright, I don't see why though, he shrugged, giving her to pack just to see. Naruto. Her expression turned a little disbelieving as she searched a little around. Yeah, this is full of ramen. So, what's wrong with ramen? It's the greatest food in the land, he reasoned. She simply looked a little struck by his reasoning. You can't be so. Are you? Wow. Way to overreact, Mito. I'm not that much of a idiot. I put my clothes in here, as he pulled out a scroll that was hanging to his back. Her brow was furrowed cutely, as in disbelief or something. It's so I get my ramen really fast. He added. Mito's eyes widened a little, her mouth twitched a little, threatening to smile. Sometimes, Mito, you need to take a load off, you're too serious all the time, he smiled, undeterred by her glare. Here, she simply said. Emi is supposed to be here soon. He got his pack full of ramen back, he put the scrolls full of items on the side or in the pockets. Right. He saw his coat, with the kanji of Mount Myoboku on the back. I found out where this is. Mount Myoboku. He nodded. Yeah, it's pretty far away though, a month full of traveling. You might be from there, she suggested. I don't think so. I read that people have never been on the top of it, he explained more of the descriptions of its surroundings. You might be the first, or that a village was already been situated on it, perhaps on the other side of the mountains. So I might be from a strange land. He shook his head, too many theories and not enough solid answers. There are plenty of contradictions that you are, or there must be some amazing coincidences, she stated. Like the shadow clone, Mito had explained its capabilities. It was solid, capable of somewhat free thought and able to retrieve information upon dispersing. It was unique among the variant of the clone. It sounded really cool, he wondered how much he could make. He shrugged, picking up that coat and placing it on himself. He next took the bag and wore it over his shoulder. That sense of dread continued to bore at him. It made him nervous. It had stopped now, it felt like it was at the pit of his stomach. The seal. It had stopped yesterday, and on that night he had a strange dream. Its details kept fading and reappearing at odd intervals. Nothing could be extracted from it, so he didn't bother telling Mito. He turned to face the door. Mito was still standing there. It fits you well. Thanks. She dug into her pockets. My grandfather wanted you to have this. She pulled out a metallic piece, a black band attached to it. The symbol of the Uzumaki was engraved on it. The same as the one Mito wore on her forehead too. You'll have to wear it, until we reach Konoha, not official until you decide to join. He took the offered headband, as her tone suggested there was no room for complaints. Taking a moment to inspect it, before tying it around his head. It felt right to have something around it. It was comfortable. A knock sounded at the door, that familiar annoying knocking of Emmy. Mito immediately went to go answer the door as he followed behind. He just purposely hung back a little for specific reasons. The door swung open, revealing Emmy. A sad frown when she entered. Ah, I'll be so sad to see you both go. You'll still be able to visit. Mito replied. But that would be while from now, and who knows how long your mission will last. You kept saying that it might be. Emmy had a sad frown on her face. The sense of goodbye was immediately in the air. It made him feel, even if it does last that long, we're being rotated so I'll still be able to visit and stay here for a few months, Mito replied softly. I'll still miss you. Of course, I'll miss you too. Emmy looked ready to cry, her eyes watery. She stepped forward to engulf her in a soft sisterly hug. Naruto felt like he didn't belong in such a moment. Mito's expression had greatly softened. She looked peaceful, at ease. It was plain to see that she really loved her sister. They broke apart, taking a moment to collect themselves as he stood there a little awkwardly. Eventually, however, he was noticed by Emmy herself. Immediately, he too was given a surprising hug. Hesitantly, he returned the it. It was nice, he could only think. Watch her for me, okay? She whispered quietly. If anything, she's the one looking after me. She was probably smiling, but his comment was ignored. It'll make me feel better, if you promise. What else was he supposed to say? He wasn't going to deny her, the thought never crossed him. I promise. It was strange how he felt when he said that. Thank you. As she tore herself away. Mito was looking curiously with that glint in her eye. She was holding the door open. It's time to go now. Got it. As he stepped towards the door. Another too many goodbyes were made with Emmy as they left the site of Mito's apartment. He could only follow her absent-mindedly through the village. It seemed like a simple request, to watch over Mito. Although he felt very strongly about it. He didn't want to disappoint Emmy, who was a good friend. Naruto had been on some self-searching, he couldn't help it. He had contemplated on how he was originally. Was he some sliver of his personality? Or was he his own unique person? Perhaps. Naruto was inside somewhere, or just a piece of him. He blinked, realizing that they had stopped. Their walk had been a while now. Mito was standing over a nearby bench. So, where is everyone? He asked, looking around where the apparent meeting point was. Which was a gate side, going towards Konoha and its residing country. There was no one around, at least, no one that looked like shinobi with packs like himself and Mito. He turned to the woman, looking a little flustered for some reason. They're late, she seemed to concentrate for several moments. Aren't we on time? He asked. Yes, we are. So we didn't have to rush at all? He asked, and realized something odd about Mito. That's pretty funny. She didn't seem to want to answer his question. I know who they are, and it seems that they are not even close to being ready, or near here. He looked around. A guard was stationed at the entrance. Some other civilians were walking around the sidewalk going about their day. He was still standing up on the other side of the bench where Mito was sitting. He wondered if they had enough time to. So, Mito looked expectantly at him. Want to go get some ramen? Are you serious? Yeah, he answered. Didn't we have ramen yesterday? He nodded. Well, yeah, but that was yesterday. She blinked several times, a blank look. I'd rather not. We'll wait here until the others arrive. Besides, we ate a few hours ago. She sat down on a nearby bench. Ah, come on. You said it might be a while. You got your cool stalker thing so you know where they are, he reasoned. She looked aghast at him. Did you just call my sensory ability, the nerve? She huffed and looked away. Her cheeks flushed in anger. Oh, did I? He scratched his head. I mean, it's kind of true, is it? That's how you found me last time. Just be silent, she said harshly. Ending the conversation. I guess there's no ramen then. He sat down dejectedly. Waiting in silence. Long minutes passed and he was tempted to risk asking her again. He decided not to, and started to pull out an instant ramen packet from out of his bag. Popping the cup open and alerting Mito. Are you really going to eat that here? She questioned. A somewhat annoyed look lingered from his earlier suggestion. Sure. Why not? Ramen is ramen. Although I would like to have some hot water with it and see to Emmy too. We saw her 30 minutes ago. He shrugged. That was some slightly heavy stuff. I'd like more normal moments with her. You know, I obviously don't have a ton of memories to remember people by, so I would like to have more of those precious little times, you know. But, don't you think those heavy occasions are more significant? She replied, her expression of interest and curiosity again. Of course, but sometimes I want more, happier times, I guess. Even if it doesn't really seem much, you know. With anyone that would be my friend, like you. He looked down to take a good bite out of the block of instant ramen. It tasted okay, but the hot water and spices definitely made the dish